When Russian dictator Vladimir Putin jailed Mikhail Khodorkovsky in 2003, it symbolized his grip on power and the end of independent business in Russia. Nearly 20 years later, Khodorkovsky has once again become a threat to the president, this time due to FSB accusations of plotting a coup d'etat. The authorities claim that the anti-war committee, founded by Khodorkovsky, allegedly planned to seize power by force. The opposition leader himself calls these accusations fabricated, while experts believe the Kremlin is simply paranoid. The Telegraph writes about this. This speaks to the fear and vulnerability of the Russian government, noted John Herbst, former US ambassador to Ukraine. According to him, Putin is once again seeking internal enemies to justify weakening his regime. He has many reasons for concern. Russia's economy, long sustained by military contracts, has begun to collapse. Banks are mired in the debt of defense enterprises, interest rates are hitting record highs, and industry is unable to service their loans. Economists estimate that about a quarter of all corporate loans in Russia are loans to companies associated with the military. These loans were issued without any real guarantee of repayment, and now many companies are on the brink of bankruptcy. Even the largest banks are buckling under the strain. Bloomberg reports that several are already preparing requests for central bank assistance. However, the head of the regulator, Elvira Nabiullina, insists there is no crisis. Opposition politician Vladimir Milov warns. Everything in Russia looks calm until suddenly an avalanche of non-payments begins. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones are launching new strikes against Russian oil refineries. Since the beginning of the year, 21 of the 38 largest refineries have been attacked, and gasoline prices have now risen by 40%. Fuel coupons have been introduced in occupied Crimea, and small gas stations in Siberia are closing. The situation is exacerbated by US actions. President Donald Trump, frustrated by the lack of progress in peace talks, imposed sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's largest oil giants. Furthermore, Washington threatened to punish banks that help Moscow process oil export payments. Following this, China and India reduced their purchases of Russian oil, depriving the Kremlin of key revenue. For the first time in 3.5 years, Russia is truly feeling pain, said Chatham House analyst Timothy Ash. He noted that Moscow is losing financial resources faster than it can replace them. Trump makes no secret of his intention to increase pressure. He must end this war. Do you see the gas lines in Russia? Their entire economy is about to collapse, the American leader said. Against this backdrop, the Kremlin is becoming increasingly nervous. Khodorkovsky stated that the FSB's reaction to his activities is due to anxiety surrounding the issue of the succession of power. Putin has no obvious successor, and trust in the country's governing institutions has long been undermined. Milov notes that the rise in loan restructurings is a worrying sign. Companies are unable to repay their debts. Economists warn that the state is already depleting its reserves, and the budget deficit has grown fivefold. Less than half of the National Welfare Fund's funds remain, making financing the war increasingly difficult. Putin has found himself trapped by his own policies. Western sanctions have isolated Russia from technology, and its dependence on China makes it vulnerable. Xi Jinping can collapse the Russian economy with one decision, Khodorkovsky emphasized. The combination of sanctions, debt, domestic fear, and military pressure is turning Putin's system into a fragile house of cards. And now, as they say in Washington, he no longer has any cards.
New York mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani vowed to take the city back at a rally on Sunday as the race enters its final stretch. Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, took the stage at a small stadium in Queens where he and two of the nation's leading progressives pitched his candidacy as a force to take on billionaires and oligarchs who have thrown money and support behind his opponents. As the crowd chanted his name, Mamdani reiterated plans to hire thousands of new teachers, renegotiate city contracts, freeze rent for low-income residents, build more affordable housing and provide universal child care. With early voting underway ahead of Election Day on November 4, Mamdani, a democratic socialist, is in an increasingly caustic race with former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent candidate after losing the Democratic primary to Mamdani, and Republican Curtis Sliwa, who campaigned Sunday in Queens. Cuomo has sought to cast Mamdani, a 34-year-old state assembly member, as a naive candidate whose agenda would damage the city. In a radio interview Sunday morning, Cuomo argued that he is the real Democrat in the race while saying Mamdani's democratic socialism would result in an exodus of residents and businesses. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have supported Mamdani's campaign for months, including before the Democratic primary in June. On Sunday they cast Mamdani as an antidote to what they called the creeping authoritarianism of President Donald Trump's administration. Under the slogan, "New York is not for sale," the rally featured rousing speeches from religious and labor leaders along with state elected officials including Governor Kathy Hochul, Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie. The event was emceed by Sarah Sherman of Saturday Night Live. Mamdani recently received an endorsement from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a moderate New York Democrat.
And now, as we stand on the precipice of taking this city back from corrupt politicians and the billionaires that fund them, let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud so that he can hear us even if he's in Westchester this evening. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale. But over the past few weeks, as this race has entered its final days, we have witnessed displays of Islamophobia that shock the conscience. Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa do not have an agenda for the future. All they possess is the playbook of the past. They have sought to make this election a referendum not on the affordability crisis that consumes New Yorkers' lives, but on the faith I belong to and the hatred they seek to normalize. For too long, my friends, freedom has belonged only to those who can afford to buy it. The oligarchs of New York are the wealthiest people in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world.